Emma Montgomery stood in front of the vintage mirror in her childhood bedroom, watching as her mother carefully pinned the last few crystals into her upswept hair. The afternoon sunlight streaming through the bay windows caught each delicate stone, creating a constellation of sparkles that danced across her reflection. 2 weeks. Just 2 weeks until she would walk down the aisle to marry Justin Carter, the man who had swept her off her feet 3 years ago at her best friend's gallery opening. "You look absolutely perfect, sweetheart," her mother whispered, stepping back to admire her handiwork. "Justin won't know what hit him when he sees you in the actual dress." Emma smiled, but something in her stomach twisted uncomfortably. The last few weeks had felt off. Little things. Justin working later than usual. Calls that he stepped outside to take. The way his smile seemed to fade when he thought she wasn't looking. She pushed the thoughts away, chalking it up to pre-wedding jitters and the stress of planning a 300-person celebration. "I should head home," Emma said, carefully removing the hair accessories. "Justin's coming over for dinner, and I promised to make his favorite pasta." As she gathered her things, her mother handed her a stack of mail that had arrived at the family home. "These came for you yesterday. Probably more RSVPs." It wasn't until later that evening, as she waited for Justin to arrive, he was running late, again, that Emma noticed the plain white envelope mixed in with the cream-colored response cards. No return address. Her name written in an unfamiliar hand. The pasta water boiled over as she read the letter once, twice, 3 times, her hands shaking more violently with each pass. "Emma. You deserve to know the truth about the man you're planning to marry. Justin has been seeing someone else for the past 8 months. Her name is Lauren Mitchell. They meet at the Westbrook Hotel every Thursday afternoon. Don't take my word for it, check his phone. Look for messages from Work Project L. I'm sorry to be the one to tell you this, but I couldn't stand by and watch you marry him without knowing the truth. A friend." The sound of Justin's key in the lock made her jump. She quickly shoved the letter into her pocket, her mind racing. Thursday afternoons. That's when he had his standing meeting with the marketing team. The meetings that had started 8 months ago. "Something smells amazing," Justin called out, his footsteps approaching the kitchen. He appeared in the doorway, handsome as ever in his charcoal suit, his tie slightly loosened. He crossed to her, dropping a kiss on her cheek. "Sorry I'm late, baby. That client meeting ran long." Emma forced herself to smile, even as bile rose in her throat. "No problem. I was just getting started." She watched as he set his phone face down on the counter, something he'd started doing recently. "How about a glass of wine?" "Perfect," he replied, shrugging off his jacket. As he headed to the bedroom to change, Emma stared at his phone. She had never been the type to snoop. Trust was everything in a relationship, that's what her father had always taught her. But as she stood there, the weight of that anonymous letter burning a hole in her pocket, she realized that trust, like everything else precious in life, could be shattered in an instant. Her hand trembled as she reached for the phone. For years together meant she knew his password, their anniversary. The irony wasn't lost on her. It took less than 2 minutes to find the conversation thread labeled Work Project L. Her world tilted on its axis as she scrolled through message after message, each one driving the knife deeper. "Missing you already. Last night was incredible. I hate hiding this, but I can't lose you. 2 more weeks until she's out of town for the bachelorette weekend." Pictures. Intimate messages. Plans for their next meeting. All of it documented in painful detail. "Hey, have you seen my phone?" Justin's voice carried from the bedroom. Emma stood perfectly still, her finger hovering over a photo of Justin and a stunning blonde woman, Lauren, wrapped in each other's arms, laughing at something off camera. They looked happy. Natural. In love. Emma. She heard his footsteps approaching and made no move to hide what she was doing. The pasta water had long since boiled away, leaving a scorched pot that filled the kitchen with acrid smoke, a fitting metaphor for the ruins of her carefully planned future. Justin appeared in the doorway, now wearing sweatpants and a t-shirt. His face transformed as he took in the scene, Emma, tears streaming down her cheeks, his phone in her trembling hands. "I can explain," he started, taking a step toward her. Emma held up her hand, stopping him in his tracks. "Thursday afternoon marketing meetings." Her voice cracked. "Is that what you call fucking your girlfriend at the Westbrook Hotel?" The color drained from Justin's face. "Baby, please. It's not what you think. Lauren, she's just. Don't." Emma's voice was steel now, even as her insides felt like shattered glass. "Don't you dare try to minimize this. 8 months, Justin. 8 months of lies. Of making me feel crazy for thinking something was wrong. Of planning our wedding while you were planning your next hookup." She walked to the counter and picked up her engagement ring, a 3-carat diamond that had belonged to his grandmother. The ring she had once thought was a symbol of their eternal love. Now it felt like a shackle, a beautiful prison built on lies. "Emma, wait," Justin pleaded, reaching for her. "I love you. Lauren was a mistake. A moment of weakness. Please, we can fix this." She placed the ring on the counter with deliberate care. "You know what the worst part is? I actually believe that you love me. But love without respect, without honesty? That's not love at all. That's ownership. And I refuse to be owned." As she walked past him toward the door, he grabbed her arm. "Where are you going? We need to talk about this." She jerked away from him, her voice deadly calm. "Don't touch me. Ever again. I'm going to my parents' house. Tomorrow, I'll start calling everyone to cancel the wedding. You can explain to your family why their non-refundable flights won't be needed after all." "You're being hysterical," Justin said, his tone shifting from pleading to argumentative. "This is one mistake in 4 years of happiness. Are you really willing to throw all of that away?" Emma paused at the door, turning to face him one last time. "No, Justin. You threw it away. 8 months ago, when you decided that our love, our future, our trust wasn't enough for you. I'm just finally picking up the pieces." She walked out into the warm evening air, her step surprisingly steady for someone whose world had just imploded. Her phone buzzed in her pocket, likely Justin, already starting his campaign of explanations and apologies. Instead of checking it, she looked up at the darkening sky, where the first stars were beginning to appear. 2 weeks until what should have been her wedding day. 2 weeks that now stretched before her like an empty road, leading somewhere she couldn't yet imagine. For the first time since reading that letter, she took a deep breath that didn't feel like drowning. Her phone buzzed again, and this time she glanced at the screen. But it wasn't Justin. It was a text from Adam, her oldest friend. "Hey, saw you leaving your place. You looked upset. Want to grab a coffee and talk?" Emma stared at the message for a long moment, remembering all the times Adam had been there for her, his steady presence a constant in her life even as everything else changed. She typed back a simple response, "Yes. Please." As she walked toward their favorite coffee shop, Emma realized that while her wedding plans might be in ashes, perhaps something else, something true and honest, could rise from the ruins. The coffee shop's warm lighting couldn't mask the devastation etched across Emma's face as she sat across from Adam, her hands wrapped around an untouched cup of chamomile tea. Through the window, the city's nightlife was coming alive, people moving through their normal routines, unaware that her world had stopped spinning on its axis. Adam waited patiently as she struggled to find words. He'd always been like that, steady, understanding, present without being demanding. His dark eyes held concern but no judgment as she finally began to speak, her voice barely above a whisper. 8 months, she said, the words tasting like ash in her mouth. He's been living a double life for 8 months, and I never saw it. How could I be so blind? Emma, Adam leaned forward, his voice gentle but firm. This isn't about you being blind. This is about Justin being a masterful liar. You trusted him because that's what people do when they love someone. He's the one who betrayed that trust. She pulled out her phone, scrolling through the photos she'd taken of Justin's messages before leaving the apartment. Look at this, she turned the screen toward Adam. They were planning weekends together during my bachelorette trip. He was going to. Her voice broke. He was going to spend the weekend with her while I was celebrating our upcoming wedding with my friends. Adam's jaw tightened as he read the messages, but his voice remained calm. Have you told your parents yet? No. Emma ran a hand through her hair, dislodging the few remaining pins from her earlier wedding hair trial. They scattered across the table like broken promises. Mom was so excited about the wedding. Dad already paid the vendors. Non-refundable deposits, Adam. Thousands of dollars, gone because I fell in love with a liar. Her phone buzzed again, the 15th message from Justin in the past hour. Without looking, she turned the phone face down. He keeps saying it was a mistake. That Lauren meant nothing. That we can work through this. A bitter laugh escaped her. Work through this? He's been sleeping with another woman for almost our entire engagement. Every kiss, every "I love you," every moment we spent planning our future, it was all a lie. What do you need? Adam asked simply. Whatever it is, I'm here. The question hit her like a physical blow. What did she need? She needed the past 8 months to be a nightmare. She needed to unsee those messages, unfeel this pain, unlearn the truth about the man she'd thought was her soulmate. I need. She started, then stopped as her voice cracked. I need somewhere to stay tonight. I can't go back to the apartment, and I can't face my parents yet. Not like this. My guest room is yours, Adam replied without hesitation. For as long as you need it. As they left the coffee shop, Emma's phone buzzed with a different kind of message, an email from Lauren Mitchell herself. Emma. I know you've discovered the truth about Justin and me. I want you to know that I never meant for any of this to happen. Justin told me your relationship was essentially over, that you were only going through with the wedding because of family pressure. I believed him because I wanted to believe him. It wasn't until I saw your wedding announcement in the local paper, complete with your beaming smile and story of how you met, that I realized the extent of his deception. I'm pregnant, Emma. 3 months along. Justin doesn't know yet. I thought you deserved to know the whole truth before he tries to manipulate his way back into your life. I'm sorry. God, I'm so sorry. Lauren. The world tilted dangerously. Emma stumbled, and Adam's arm was instantly around her waist, supporting her. Emma. What's wrong? She handed him the phone wordlessly, watching as his expression shifted from concern to shock to barely contained fury. That son of a bitch, he muttered, then immediately softened his tone. Let's get you somewhere safe. We can deal with all of this tomorrow. But as they walked to Adam's car, the reality of her situation crashed over her in waves. The wedding venue to cancel. 300 invitations to retract. The dress hanging in her closet, waiting for alterations. The honeymoon tickets to Hawaii. Her entire life, meticulously planned around a future that had just gone up in flames. I can't believe this is happening, she whispered as Adam drove through the darkening streets. Yesterday, I was worried about seating arrangements and flower choices. Now. She gestured helplessly at nothing in particular. Now I don't even know where I'm going to live. One step at a time, Adam said quietly. Tonight, you rest. Tomorrow, we start figuring things out. You're not alone in this, Emma. You never will be. At his apartment, Adam showed her to the guest room, bringing her a set of clean towels and one of his old college t-shirts to sleep in. The domesticity of it, the simple kindness, nearly broke her. "Thank you," she managed, sitting on the edge of the bed. "For everything." "Try to get some sleep," he said, pausing at the door. "And Emma? Remember that none of this is your fault. Not one bit of it." Alone in the unfamiliar room, Emma finally let herself break down completely. She cried for the future she'd lost, for the love she'd thought was real, for the child that would forever tie Justin to another woman. She cried until there were no tears left, until exhaustion pulled her under into a fitful sleep. Her last conscious thought was of Adam's words, "You're not alone in this." In the living room, Adam sat in the darkness, his phone illuminating his face as he typed out a message to Emma's parents. "Emma's safe. She's staying with me tonight. She'll explain everything tomorrow, but right now she needs space and time. Please trust me on this." He hesitated, then added, "She's going to need all of us to get through what's coming." As he hit send, his free hand clenched into a fist. He'd watched Emma and Justin's relationship from the beginning, swallowing his own feelings, telling himself that her happiness was what mattered most. Now, seeing her world shatter, he realized that sometimes love meant being ready to help pick up the pieces, even if you didn't know what shape they'd take when put back together. Dawn crept through unfamiliar curtains as Emma lay awake in Adam's guest room, watching shadows dance across the ceiling. Sleep had come in fractured moments, each awakening bringing fresh waves of realization. The weight of Justin's betrayal pressed against her chest, making each breath a conscious effort. Her phone displayed 57 missed calls and dozens of text messages. Most from Justin, some from her mother, a few from concerned bridesmaids who had somehow already heard. She scrolled past Justin's messages, variations of "please let me explain" and "we can fix this," until she found the one that had arrived at 3 a.m. "I just talked to Lauren. How dare you contact her behind my back? This is exactly why our relationship has been struggling. You never trusted me. The pregnancy isn't even mine. She's manipulating both of us. Call me. We need to talk about this like adults." Emma's hands shook as she read the message again. The calculated cruelty of it, the way he tried to twist reality to make her the villain, it was like a veil lifting, revealing glimpses of a man she'd never truly known. A gentle knock at the door preceded Adam's voice. "Emma? I made coffee if you're up." She found him in the kitchen, morning light streaming through large windows. 2 mugs sat on the counter alongside a paper bag from her favorite bakery. The normality of it, coffee and pastries on a Sunday morning, made her throat tight with unshed tears. "You went to Maple Street Bakery?" she asked, recognizing the logo. Adam shrugged, pushing her usual order, an almond croissant, toward her. "Figured you could use some comfort food. How are you holding up?" "I don't know," she admitted, wrapping her hands around the warm coffee mug. "It's like I keep thinking I've hit bottom, you know. And then there's another level of awful waiting underneath." She showed him Justin's latest message. Adam's expression darkened as he read it. Classic manipulation. He's trying to gaslight you, make you doubt what you know is true. "The thing is," Emma said slowly, "part of me wants to believe him. Isn't that pathetic? After everything, some broken piece of me still wants this all to be a misunderstanding." She laughed bitterly. "God, I'm such a fool." "Hey," Adam's voice was gentle but firm. "You're not a fool. You're someone who loved deeply and honestly. That's not weakness, Emma. That's courage." She looked up at him, really looked at him for the first time since yesterday. The concern in his dark eyes, the slight stubble suggesting he hadn't slept much either, the way he stood close enough to support but not so close as to crowd her. Adam had been her friend since college, always there, always steady. How had she never noticed the depth of understanding in his gaze? "I have to call my parents," she said, breaking the moment. "They deserve to hear it from me before the rumors start flying." Adam nodded. "Use my office." Take all the time you need. Her mother answered on the first ring. Emma. Sweetheart, what's going on? Your father and I have been worried sick. The sound of her mother's voice, worried, loving, completely unaware of how their carefully planned future had imploded, broke something inside Emma. Through tears, she told them everything: the anonymous letter, the messages, Lauren's pregnancy, Justin's manipulation. Oh, my baby, her mother breathed. We'll be there in 20 minutes. No, Emma said quickly. No, I need time. Space. To figure out who I am without him. Without all the plans and expectations. Can you handle calling the vendors? I'll pay you back for everything, I promise, I just can't. I can't face it right now. Emma Montgomery, her father's voice came on the line, gruff with emotion. Don't you dare worry about money right now. Your mother and I will take care of everything. You just take care of yourself. After the call, Emma stood in Adam's office, staring out the window at the city below. People rushed about their Sunday routines, unaware that in apartments and offices and coffee shops, lives were falling apart and being rebuilt. A text notification lit up her phone, not Justin this time, but Lauren. I know you have no reason to trust me or want anything to do with me. But I have proof of everything: messages, photos, hotel receipts going back months. If you want them, they're yours. I think maybe we both need to understand the full truth of who he really is. Emma's finger hovered over the reply button when another message came through. He's been calling me all morning, saying horrible things. Threatening me. Saying he'll make sure I never see a penny of child support, that he'll destroy my reputation if I don't tell you it was all a lie. I'm scared, Emma. I know I have no right to ask you for anything, but I don't know who else to turn to. The irony wasn't lost on her, the other woman reaching out for help, seeking alliance with the very person she'd helped deceive. But something in the message rang true, echoing the desperate edge she'd heard in Justin's voice last night. A memory surfaced, Justin's rage when she'd once questioned a suspicious text from a coworker, the way he'd turned it around on her, accused her of being paranoid, made her apologize for doubting him. How many red flags had she ignored, painted over with excuses and rationalization? Emma. Adam's voice drew her back to the present. He stood in the doorway, concern etched on his features. Your hands are shaking. She looked down, surprised to find he was right. I think I'm starting to see who Justin really is. And it terrifies me that I never saw it before. Adam crossed the room slowly, telegraphing his movements. When he reached her, he gently took the phone from her trembling hands and set it aside. Sometimes we don't see things clearly until we're forced to step back. The question is, what do you want to do now? Emma turned to face him fully, suddenly aware of how close they were standing. In his eyes, she saw no judgment, no expectations, just steady support and something else, something that made her heart beat faster despite everything. I want the truth, she said finally. All of it. No matter how ugly. And then I want to figure out who I am without Justin's version of me in the way. Adam's smile was soft, understanding. Then that's what we'll do. One step at a time. As if on cue, her phone lit up again, Justin's name flashing on the screen. But this time, Emma didn't feel the desperate urge to answer. Instead, she reached out and turned the phone face down, choosing, for the first time in years, to listen to her own voice instead of his. The coffee shop where Emma agreed to meet Lauren was quiet for a Tuesday afternoon. She'd chosen it carefully, public enough to feel safe, private enough for difficult conversations. Adam waited in his car outside, respecting her need to do this alone while ensuring she had support if needed. Lauren arrived exactly on time, her pregnancy barely visible beneath a loose sweater. Up close, she looked younger than in the photos Emma had found, more vulnerable. Her hands trembled as she set a manila envelope on the table between them. Everything's in there, Lauren said softly. Messages, photos, receipts. She paused, struggling. I kept everything because something felt wrong. The way he would change his story, make me doubt my own memories. I started documenting things just to keep myself sane. Emma's throat tightened as she recognized the behavior. How many times had Justin made her question her own perceptions? How many misunderstandings had she apologized for, when her only crime was trusting her instincts? When did it start? Emma asked, her voice steadier than she felt. Lauren's eyes filled with tears. Last July. At the company retreat. He said you two were practically separated, that the engagement was just for show. He was so convincing, so wounded when he talked about how you didn't understand him. I believed him because I wanted to believe him. Emma remembered that July. She'd been planning their engagement party, surprised by Justin's sudden disinterest in the details. He'd blamed work stress, made her feel guilty for pressuring him about wedding plans. The pregnancy? Emma forced herself to ask. 3 months. Lauren wrapped her arms protectively around herself. When I told him, he changed. Said I was trying to trap him, that I'd planned it. He threatened to tell everyone I'd been sleeping with other men, that the baby wasn't his. Said he'd make sure I lost my job, my reputation, everything. Cold recognition washed over Emma. Like he's doing now. Lauren nodded, a tear sliding down her cheek. I never knew, in all those months, I never knew he could be so cruel. It was like a mask slipped, and suddenly I was seeing the real person underneath. Emma opened the envelope with steady hands, spreading its contents across the table. Hotel receipts, screenshots, photos, a methodical documentation of betrayal. But something else caught her eye, a pattern of manipulation so clear it took her breath away. He told you I was cold, distant, didn't understand him? Emma asked, though she already knew the answer. Yes. That I was controlling, that you were the only one who really saw him. Lauren's eyes widened. How did you? Because that's what he told his ex about me, in the beginning. Emma pulled out her phone, showing Lauren a message she'd received that morning from Justin's former fiancée, a woman she'd once believed had been unstable, jealous, unable to let go. She reached out after hearing about the wedding cancellation. Wanted to warn me about his patterns. The two women sat in silence, pieces falling into place like a terrible puzzle. Every grand romantic gesture, every tearful apology, every moment of passionate reconciliation, all part of a calculated cycle. I'm keeping the baby, Lauren said finally. I know it complicates things, but... You don't need to explain, Emma interrupted gently. This child is innocent. And you'll need documentation, for custody and support. She gestured to the envelope. May I make copies of these? Lauren nodded, relief evident in her posture. There's something else you should know. The anonymous letter. It wasn't from me. It was from Sarah in HR. She noticed things. Patterns. She tried to report him for inappropriate behavior with subordinates, but he's friends with upper management. They buried the complaints. Emma felt a piece of her heart harden, not with hatred but with resolve. Have you spoken to a lawyer? I can't afford. I know someone, Emma said. A friend from law school who specializes in workplace harassment and family law. Let me make a call. As she reached for her phone, it lit up with Justin's name. But this time, instead of fear or doubt, Emma felt only clarity. She declined the call and blocked his number in one smooth motion. He'll try to turn us against each other, Lauren warned. Make us doubt ourselves, doubt this conversation. I know, Emma replied. But he doesn't realize that his greatest mistake was giving us a reason to compare notes. Outside, Adam watched through the coffee shop window as the two women talked, their heads bent together over documents spread across the table. He saw the moment something shifted in Emma's posture, a straightening of her spine, a lifting of her shoulders. Even from a distance, he recognized the return of her strength. His phone buzzed, a message from Justin. "Tell Emma she's making a huge mistake. She's letting that lying bitch manipulate her. If you're really her friend, you'll make her see reason." Adam's jaw clenched as he typed his reply. "The only mistake Emma made was not seeing you for what you are sooner. Don't contact me again." Inside the coffee shop, Emma reached across the table and squeezed Lauren's hand. "We're not victims of his story anymore. We're writing our own." As she spoke the words, Emma felt something unlock in her chest, not healing, not yet, but the beginning of understanding. She had spent years trying to be the perfect version of herself that Justin claimed to want, never realizing that his love was conditional on her doubt, her malleability, her willingness to question her own truth. Looking at the evidence spread before her, Emma saw not just the record of betrayal, but the strength of women who had learned to document their experiences, to trust their instincts, to reach out to each other despite shame and fear. In their shared pain, they had found something Justin could never take away, the power of their own voices, finally speaking truth. The evening air carried the first hint of autumn as Emma stood in what had once been her and Justin's shared apartment. Adam waited in the doorway, a steady presence as she moved through the space, carefully selecting the pieces of her life she wanted to reclaim. Each item she packed felt like a step toward liberation, though her hands still trembled when she touched certain memories, the framed photo from their first vacation, the worn cookbook they'd used for Sunday dinners, the delicate wind chimes his mother had given her last Christmas. "You don't have to keep anything that hurts to look at," Adam said softly, watching her hesitate over a hand-knitted throw blanket. "There's no rule that says you have to preserve painful memories." Emma ran her fingers over the soft wool. "Some of it was real, wasn't it? The good parts. Or was I imagining those too?" "Your feelings were real," Adam replied, choosing his words carefully. "Your kindness, your love, your commitment, those were all real. His manipulation doesn't invalidate your capacity for genuine love." A sound from the hallway made them both tense, but it was only Mrs. Chen from next door, bringing over a container of homemade soup. The elderly woman had been Emma's quiet ally these past weeks, having recognized in Justin's charming facade something that reminded her of her own first marriage. "You eat," Mrs. Chen insisted, pressing the container into Emma's hands. "Food helps heal heart too, not just body." Emma felt tears prick her eyes at the simple kindness. "Thank you. For everything. For seeing what I couldn't see." Mrs. Chen patted her cheek gently. "Sometimes love blinds us. But love also gives strength to open eyes again." As the older woman left, Emma found herself drawn to the home office she'd once shared with Justin. Her fingers traced the edge of her desk, remembering late nights spent working on freelance projects while he praised her dedication, even as he subtly suggested she was neglecting their relationship by focusing on her career. "I've been thinking," she said, pulling open her laptop. "About what you said, about channeling this experience into something meaningful." Adam moved closer, careful to maintain the respectful distance he'd kept since that first night she'd stayed in his guest room. "The business idea?" Emma nodded, pulling up a document she'd been working on. "A platform for survivors of emotional abuse and manipulation. Not just a support network, but practical resources, legal advice, financial planning, documentation tools. Something I wish I'd had access to months ago, when things first started feeling wrong." She showed him the preliminary website design, the carefully crafted mission statement, the outreach plans. Lauren's agreed to help. So have 3 other women who've come forward about Justin's behavior at work. We're going to create something that turns our pain into power. Adam studied the screen, noting the determination in her voice. "You're amazing, you know that. Most people would still be just trying to survive, but you're already thinking about how to help others." "I am trying to survive," Emma admitted quietly. "But I'm learning that survival doesn't have to mean just existing. It can mean building something new from the ashes of what was destroyed. Her phone chimed, another message from Justin's mother, begging her to reconsider, to understand that her son was going through a difficult time. Emma deleted it without reading further, remembering the conversation she'd had with her own mother yesterday. "You were always too good for him," her mother had said, holding her through tears. "I saw it from the beginning, but I thought your love would be enough to make him worthy of you. I'm so sorry I didn't protect you better." "You did protect me, Mom," Emma had responded. "You taught me to be strong enough to protect myself, even if it took me a while to remember that strength." Now, looking around the apartment one last time, Emma felt that strength coursing through her veins. She'd spent weeks documenting Justin's patterns of manipulation, not just for herself but for the legal case Lauren was building. Each revelation had been painful, but each had also been a step toward freedom. "I think I'm ready," she said, picking up the last box. "Not just to leave this place, but to leave behind the version of me that thought love meant making yourself smaller." Adam took the box from her hands, their fingers brushing briefly. The contact sent a subtle warmth through her chest, not the desperate, consuming heat she'd mistaken for love with Justin, but something gentler, steadier. "Emma," Adam started, then hesitated. In the soft evening light, she could see the conflict in his eyes, the desire to speak warring with his respect for her healing process. "It's okay," she said softly. "Whatever it is, you can tell me." He set the box down carefully. "I've been keeping something from you, not because I wanted to, but because I didn't want to add to your burden." He pulled out his phone, showing her a series of threatening messages from Justin. "He's been trying to get to you through me, through your parents, through anyone he thinks might influence you. When that didn't work, he started making threats." Emma read the messages, her hand steadied despite their disturbing content. Threats to destroy her reputation, to reveal private details about their relationship, to ensure she'd never work in their industry again. But instead of fear, she felt only a deep, calm certainty. "Add these to the file," she said. "Lauren's lawyer thinks we have enough for a restraining order, but this helps establish the pattern of harassment." "You're not afraid?" Emma considered the question carefully. "I'm not afraid of him anymore. I'm afraid of how long I might have stayed if I hadn't received that anonymous letter. I'm afraid for the next woman he might try to manipulate. But I'm not afraid of his threats, because I finally understand something." She moved to the window, watching the sunset paint the city in shades of gold and pink. "His power over me came from my fear of losing his love. But that love was never real, it was a weapon he used to control me. And now that I see it clearly, that weapon has no power anymore." Adam joined her at the window, close enough that she could feel the warmth radiating from his body. "What happens now?" Emma turned to face him, really seeing him, the friend who had become her anchor, the man who had shown her what genuine care looked like. Now I learn to trust myself again. To recognize real love when I see it. To build something meaningful from all this pain." She reached for his hand, intertwining their fingers. It was a small gesture, but it felt like a declaration of independence, a promise to herself that she would never again mistake control for love. 1 year later, Emma stood at the podium of the Women's Resource Center, her voice steady as she addressed the room full of survivors and advocates. Morning light streamed through the tall windows, casting a warm glow over the faces of women who had become not just allies, but sisters in healing. "Survival isn't a destination," she said, her fingers lightly touching the silver pendant at her neck, a gift from her mother, inscribed with the words, "Your strength was always there." "It's a journey we take one day at a time, sometimes one breath at a time. And while our stories may begin in darkness, they don't have to end there." In the front row, Lauren sat with her 6-month-old daughter, Grace, sleeping peacefully in her arms. The restraining order against Justin had been granted months ago, after his threats escalated to physical intimidation. The documentation Emma and Lauren had gathered proved instrumental not just in their case, but in helping 3 other women come forward with similar experiences. Emma's online platform, Reclaim, had grown from a simple support forum into a nationwide network of resources and advocacy. Each day brought new stories of women finding their voice, their strength, their way back to themselves. The hardest lesson I learned, Emma continued, her gaze meeting individual faces in the crowd, wasn't about him. It was about me. About how I had to unlearn the habit of making myself smaller to accommodate someone else's need for control. About how real love doesn't demand your silence or your doubt, it celebrates your voice, your truth, your whole self. Adam watched from the back of the room, pride and something deeper shining in his eyes. Their relationship had evolved slowly, mindfully, built on a foundation of mutual respect and genuine understanding. He had been patient as she worked through her trauma, never pushing, always supporting her journey of healing. Someone asked me recently if I regret those years, Emma said, her voice softening. The truth is, I regret the pain, but I don't regret the learning. Every manipulative text I documented, every gaslighting conversation I recorded, every moment I questioned my sanity, they all taught me something valuable. They taught me to trust my instincts, to value my worth, to recognize the difference between love and control. In the audience, Mrs. Chen dabbed at her eyes with a tissue. She had become a regular at their support group meetings, sharing her own story of survival and renewal. Her quiet strength had inspired many others to speak their truth. The platform we're launching today, Emma gestured to the screen behind her, where the Reclaim website displayed its new features, isn't just about documenting abuse or finding legal resources. It's about reclaiming our narratives. Each of us has a story that deserves to be heard, validated, and transformed into power. Lauren stood, gently rocking Grace, and joined Emma at the podium. We're especially proud to announce our partnership with 3 national law firms specializing in domestic abuse cases. They've committed to providing pro bono services to women who need legal support but can't afford it. The audience broke into applause, and Emma felt tears prick her eyes as she watched mothers hugging daughters, friends clasping hands, strangers exchanging knowing looks of understanding and support. After the presentation, as the crowd mingled over coffee and pastries, Emma found herself in a quiet corner with Adam. He handed her a cup of tea, chamomile, just like that first night she'd sought refuge in his friendship. "You were amazing up there," he said softly. "You're amazing every day." Emma leaned into his embrace, feeling the steady beat of his heart. "I couldn't have done any of this without you." "Yes, you could have," he corrected gently. "Your strength was always there. I just had the privilege of witnessing it emerge." She looked up at him, seeing in his eyes what she had once desperately sought in Justin's, genuine love, unmarred by the need to control or diminish. "I'm ready," she whispered. "Ready for what?" "To stop being afraid of happiness. To trust that love can be both peaceful and passionate. To believe that I deserve a partnership built on truth rather than manipulation." She took his hand, intertwining their fingers. "I'm ready to write a new story, one where I don't have to question my worth or doubt my perceptions." Adam's free hand came up to cup her cheek, his touch infinitely tender. "I love you," he said simply. "All of you, your strength, your vulnerability, your determination to turn pain into purpose. I love you not despite your scars, but including them, because they're part of the remarkable woman you are." Across the room, Lauren caught Emma's eye and smiled, understanding passing between them. They had both learned that healing wasn't about erasing the past, but about using it as foundation stones for building a better future. Grace stirred in her mother's arms, her tiny face turning toward the sunlight streaming through the windows. Emma watched as Lauren kissed her daughter's forehead, saw the fierce love and protection in that simple gesture. "Sometimes," Emma said softly, still held in Adam's embrace, "the most powerful act of survival is allowing yourself to be truly, completely loved." The morning light filled the room, touching each face, each story, each moment of triumph over darkness. And in that light, Emma saw not just her own transformation, but the ripple effect of truth-telling, of standing firm, of choosing to believe in love that builds up rather than tears down. It wasn't a perfect ending, life rarely offered those. But it was a real beginning, born from the ashes of what was lost, strengthened by the bonds of those who understood, illuminated by the dawn of new possibilities. And that, Emma realized, was the most beautiful story of all.